Chapter 2996. Every time they killed the big boss, this group of people would always lose something. Like Tangua, they didn't dare to openly hold the things in their hands, fearing that other powerful people would snatch them away. Actually, if they didn't want their things to be stolen, they could just leave Tangua's team. But no one had the thought of leaving. First of all, this team was very powerful. Everyone had never lost a boss fight. When other small teams came over, they didn't dare to come close. Also, the turtle was a very cheap means of transportation. Whether it was climbing mountains or crossing rivers, it was very fast, agile, and powerful. Sitting here, there was no need to be afraid of other conflicts. Lastly, Tangua's identity was the true nouveau riche of the graceful party. It also represented strength. No one would be willing to leave if they met such an existence. Most importantly, they thought that the thief stole their things and didn't dare to use them now. No one dared to use them either. No one left at the moment. When the time came, if anyone left, they could suspect that the thief stole it. In order to not arouse suspicion, no one moved. Su Wei understood the mentality of these people and finally let out a breath of resentment in her heart. Back when she was playing the game, she was tortured badly by that nouveau riche, Tangua. She clearly didn't provoke her, but she was forced to challenge her time and time again. Was she really a nouveau riche that allowed her to casually beat people? Every day, Su Wei changed the way she took out the weapons of the thieves and used them. Anyway, they had become ordinary people. Moreover, the magical equipment was more powerful now. She changed all the weapons, as long as they were of the same type, into the same appearance. The people outside didn't know that she could change many kinds of weapons in a day. Halfway through, they set up camp in the wilderness. Su Wei even put on better equipment. Because it was just ordinary low-level equipment in the game, not many people paid attention to it. Back in the game, such equipment could be seen everywhere. It was very common. Once, after killing the boss and snatching the items, they had a rule. When they were snatching things, they didn't care about anyone. After snatching, they put the things in their backpacks. That meant that the matter was over. If there were any grudges, they could settle it in private. In short, she didn't want to embarrass herself in front of the rich Tangua. Tangua felt that their days were too dull, which was not good for their future development. So she decided to give their lives some excitement. System. Oh no! Everyone treated their injuries, swallowed all kinds of medicinal pills, and got on the back of the tortoise. They didn't forget about Tangua either. They would give her a reward for sitting on the turtle's back. Although the nouveau riche didn't mind, this was their token of appreciation for him. Even the ferocious man from before was now looking at Tangua and Su Gu with a face full of smiles, trying to please her. What a joke! Who wouldn't want to join the Graceful Covenant sect? This nouveau riche was the leader of the Graceful and Graceful sect. If he was polite, he might be able to join. A wise man submits to circumstances. Don't think that just because the nouveau riche doesn't lack this, he doesn't mind them sitting on tortoises for nothing. Miss Tang, every time those big bosses are killed, their corpses disappear. However, after these small monsters are killed, their bodies will still remain. Vertex. Chapter 2997. We made some barbecued meat. Do you want to try it? I've tasted it. It's not poisonous and the meat is still very tender. I always have all kinds of seasonings in my bag. The person who spoke was the fierce man. His name was Susan. He held a plate of fresh meat and handed it to Tangua. Try it. Su Gu glanced at Tangua. Does my wife want to eat it? Do you want me to barbecue it for you? Susan wasn't angry at Su Gu. This was a big shot. What was there to be angry about? It was normal for the big shot to think that his barbecue was better. If Mr. Su doesn't think my barbecue is good, I still have a lot of fresh meat. The fire is still burning. When talking to a big shot, one had to be polite. This was the awareness of a follower. He didn't have any extravagant hopes. He felt that he would be very happy in this life if he could be this rich man's follower. If the big shot ate the meat, he could just drink the soup. If not, he could just eat the dregs of the soup. Susan's shamelessness made everyone on the tortoise's back vomit. He was so arrogant earlier, but now he was trying to curry favor with the big shot. Susan didn't mind being mocked. If he could become the big shot's follower, so what if the whole world mocked him? Only those who had crawled and rolled around at the bottom knew how difficult it was to live. Even if the world changed, they were still at the bottom. He just wanted to be able to stand a little higher so that he didn't have to worry about his next meal and might lose his life at any time. Let's eat this. I think it's not bad. Tangua accepted Su-san's barbecue. It wasn't because of anything else, but because this guy was tactful enough to know his place. For such a person, as long as he was strong enough, he would always be your follower. Su-gu took the plate and cut the meat into small pieces. Let me try it first. He was afraid that it wouldn't taste good or that it wouldn't be good after eating it. Su-san was still smiling. He didn't mind at all. Just try it. The big shot could cook it however he liked. As a follower, he didn't mind at all. This shouldn't be. After all, they were uncomfortable, right? It tastes good. Su-gu tasted it and felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Then, he used a fork to fork a piece of meat and put it next to Tangua's mouth. Wife, try it. It's quite delicious. Su-san believed that this wave should have earned him quite a bit of goodwill. He turned around and went back to extinguish the fire. He jumped onto the tortoise's back and sat in his seat, not bothering the big shots as they enjoyed their food. That Su-san is really shameless. Su-wei couldn't stand people like Su-san. To be more exact, she looked down on him. Didn't you want to steal Tangua's things? Now he's trying to curry favor again. Who knows what evil tricks he has up his sleeve. That's right. She was trying to drive a wedge between them. Without Tangua, even if she stole a lot of things, she would not be happy. Previously, Tangua had hit her game character for no reason. If it wasn't for that incident, she would definitely have a very powerful game character by her side now. Not the group of red-haired youths in tattered clothes behind her, who made her feel nauseous just looking at them. The past is the past. The present is the present. Isn't the world now a place where the strong prey on the weak? Someone said, I think Su-san is quite flexible. Su-wei didn't say anything else. She held a high-quality weapon and waved it continuously. There were also many pieces of wood in her hands. This was all for the sake of proficiency. She needed to continuously carve wood. At this moment, Tangua smiled at Su-wei's seat. Chapter 2998. Su-wei felt it. She raised her head and frowned at Tangua. Then, she realized that Tangua was looking at her in shock. It was as if something strange had happened to her. Soon, she realized that something was wrong. Not only did Tangua look at her in surprise, but many people also looked at her in shock. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Xie Xiaojun was the one who shouted, Wei Wei, what's wrong with you? Am I seeing things? What was going on? Su-wei didn't understand. However, she could feel that there was something different about Wei Wei. Tangua, please ask Little Tortoise to stand up for us. We have a lot of things to discuss with Su-wei. I knew that some things would come to light eventually. I didn't expect her to be the culprit. You can't judge a book by its cover. Su-wei, hand over my things. Thief! Su-wei's face turned pale. However, she quickly calmed down and said, What are you talking about? I don't understand. Xie Xiaojun kept pulling Su-wei as she spoke. She even reminded her softly, Wei Wei, look at the weapon in your hand and what you're wearing. When she said this, Xie Xiaojun was still in disbelief. Could it be that those things were really stolen by Vivian? If Wei Wei didn't steal them, then the weapon in her hand and the feather cloak she was wearing belonged to someone else. They were all in the same team. They must have remembered something when they got the good stuff. Su-wei lowered her head to take a look, and her entire body froze on the spot. Both the feather cloak and the sword in her hand had returned to their original forms. Su-wei, do you have anything else to say? No wonder you were trying to sow discord. You wanted us to suspect Tangua. In the end, Tangua is a real tycoon. Back then, she was ranked first in the game. Who doesn't know that she doesn't lack these little things? Humph, if it were someone else other than Tangua, Su-wei might have really gotten away with it. She was clearly the one who stole it, yet she acted as if it had nothing to do with her. Tangua had already asked Little Tortoise to stop. She did not plan to bring the artifact back with her this time. Since Su Wei liked that artifact, then she should always wear it. She was just here to play tricks and let everyone know that Su Wei had stolen something. Then, she brought Su Gu and Little Tortoise home. Little Tortoise had been carrying so many people every day. It must have been hard on him. Su Wei, can you explain? Even if you explain that you didn't steal it, who would believe you? Come down, let's have a good talk. Su Wei saw that something was wrong, so she jumped down and ran away quickly. She did not even call Yi Chengjiang and Xie Xiaozhen. They could not help her at all. These people were not easy to fool. In a while, they would definitely turn her back to her original form in order to rummage through her backpack. Then, many things would fall out of her backpack. Wei Wei, come up. The red-haired young man saw Su Wei running quickly and thought that something had happened because the road here was relatively smooth. Nangong Jin was driving a truck. When he saw Su Wei running over, he hurriedly asked her to get in. Go after her. Don't let her get away. Also, spread the news. Post it on the internet. Chapter 2999. Su Wei can steal things from other people's backpacks without anyone noticing. If she can steal from just anyone, it will bring danger to everyone. No matter what, we have to catch her. The others reacted quickly. They couldn't let Tangua chase after Su Wei, so they all got off the turtle's back and chased after Su Wei. I suspect that the loopholes in the game previously and the disappearance of items for no reason have something to do with Su Wei. You don't say. That's really possible. No matter what, even if we can't catch Su Wei, we have to post her news on the internet to let everyone be vigilant. In the future, if she wants to steal things, she'll have to see if everyone will give it to her. If she's capable, she'll just hide and not come out. Countless people chased after her while cursing. Yi Chengjiang looked in Su Wei's direction with a silent expression. If the loopholes in the game and the disappearance of those things had something to do with Su Wei, then those things that he lost back then were taken by Su Wei? Although Yi Chengjiang really wanted to tell himself that it might be a misunderstanding. However, Su Wei didn't say anything and turned around to run away. This meant that she was the one who stole everyone's things this time. Xie Xiaozhen also couldn't accept it. She had always treated Su Wei as a good friend. Otherwise, she wouldn't have brought the puppy out and teamed up with Su Wei to kill monsters during the holidays. That was because their class basically teamed up with people who had game characters. Su Wei didn't have a game character, so she thought that there was no need to be so calculative between good friends. Moreover, other than some small problems, Su Wei was quite powerful. However, she didn't expect that Su Wei, who had never cared about those high-grade weapons and only used ordinary low-grade weapons, had stolen them. However, she didn't know what method she used to disguise herself. She didn't know what was going on, but she was exposed. What was even more unacceptable to her was that Su Wei was openly wearing that feather robe and sitting beside her, and she actually didn't know about it. Previously, the young man had fought so hard to steal the feather coat for his girlfriend. Could Su Wei really bear to let him steal it? Yi Chengjiang didn't chase after them. Xie Xiaozhen was still in a daze, so she didn't chase after them either. The only person who didn't chase after Su Wei was Su San. Although Su Wei had stolen a lot of things from him, he didn't care about those things anymore. What was more important than hugging a golden thigh? System. As expected, those who can follow the host are all shameless. Su San, didn't you drop a lot of things before? Why didn't you go after them? Tang Gua asked with a smile. Su San chuckled, even if we do, we don't know if we can catch up to them. Even if we do, I think that group of red-haired people isn't simple. There are close to 20 of them, so we might not be able to beat them. Let's just forget about it. Besides, Miss Tang can't be alone, right? Susan rubbed his hands. To be honest, when I first played that game, I really admired Miss Tang. At the time, I thought that since Miss Tang has so many characters, it would be good if I could come over and be her follower. He wasn't lying. He was very envious, but he also knew that there was a huge gap between the two classes. He was different from many people. He didn't hate the rich at all. If he was that rich, he would be hated every day. The meat you barbecued is pretty good. If you don't care about those things, then come with us. Tang Gua accepted Su San. As for Su Wei, she didn't have to worry about it for now. The people of this world weren't idiots. Su Wei had already been exposed. it wouldn't be easy to steal things. Chapter 3000. As for the group of red-haired youngsters, it was normal for them to side with Su Wei. How they would develop in the future was their own business. Yi Chengjiang, are you going to look for Su Wei? At this moment, Yi Chengjiang stood up. Xie Xiaojin came back to her senses and asked, "Why don't we go together? I want to ask her personally." After all, they had known each other since they were young. She felt that it was a little rash to give up on a friend just like that. What if there was really a misunderstanding? Okay. Although they knew that the chances of Su Wei not being a thief were 0, the two of them still wanted to ask her personally. They bade farewell to Tang Guo and thanked her for the convenience she had given them recently. Then, they left together and headed in the direction where Su Wei disappeared. Let's just walk around then. Tang Guo leaned on Su Ji's arm and took out her phone to call Tang Kuei. The call was picked up and Tang Kuei's voice came from the other end. "Sister, you're finally willing to call me? I'll call Big Brother every day in the future." "Sister, there's still me." Tang Tung's noisy voice came from the other end of the phone. "Sister, Big Brother bullies me every day and enslaves me every day. He does everything for me. I'm still a child. It's too hard for me. Sister, help me persuade Big Brother not to do everything for a child." "Little brat, scram and get to work." Tang Kuei grabbed Tang Tung's collar and threw him to the side to deal with the documents. "It's not what you said, little brat. Capable people naturally have to do more work. My dear brother, you're so capable. Isn't it only right for you to do more work?" "No, I object." "Your objection is overruled." "Sister, what's the matter?" "Brother, how are the people from the gaming company adapting? I think we can upgrade one of their skills now." Tang Kuei raised his eyebrows slightly. "Su Wei was exposed by you?" "Yes, she has just been exposed. It won't be long before she's hunted down. After all, she has stolen from quite a number of people." Tang Guo's casual words made Su San's heart jump. He seemed to have understood something. Could it be that the tycoon did not come here to play, but because he knew that there was something wrong with Su Wei and deliberately came here to investigate this matter and expose Su Wei? Su San's back was drenched in sweat. To think that he had thought that these were two fat sheep. If he really bumped into it, he would probably end up in the tiger's mouth. "Sister, what do you mean?" "Let's upgrade the security level of everyone's backpacks. Since Bro has accepted all the people from the gaming company, he must have considered this aspect, right? The world is so interesting now. I won't do nothing, right?" Tang Kuei laughed. "I really can't hide anything from you. I've already asked them to upgrade the backpack's security technology. Currently, they were in the midst of testing. However, this was a technology that combined virtual reality and reality, and was still being perfected. In at least 1 year, at most 1 year, this technology will mature and be ready for use." "At most 1 year? That's fine. Let's do it. In any case, we just have to make sure that Su Wei can't steal anything." Su Wei was a thief. She could steal things from other people's backpacks without anyone noticing. This news was quickly spread on the internet. The group of people who could not catch Su Wei crazily uploaded Su Wei's photos online for everyone to see. It was to warn them to be careful when they met Su Wei, lest she stole anything. After Su Wei's school found out about this, they even invited Su Wei's parents. However, Su Wei had not returned for a long time. In the end, the school decided to expel Su Wei. Chapter 3001. Yi Chengjiang and Xie Xiaojin couldn't find Su Wei either. When school started, they had no choice but to return to school. During this time, Su Wei stayed with the group of red-haired youths. Even though she despised them, it was much safer for her to stay with them. She didn't dare to go to a place with a developed transportation network. Instead, she went to a remote place and quietly killed monsters to level up. When she became stronger, what could those people do to her? Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. The backpack security technology had been fully upgraded. Anyone who bought a product under the Tang Group's name would be able to upgrade the security of their backpack. Anyone who had a backpack would choose to buy it. Su Wei had been cultivating in the deep mountains. She felt that she was almost done. After 3 years, she was strong enough. This time, she promised not to run away when she saw anyone. As for the group of red-haired youths, they had all grown into handsome men. Even so, Su Wei still hated them. She couldn't bring herself to like the red-haired youths. "I'm leaving, Wei Wei." Su Wei took out some equipment from her backpack and threw it aside. "This is your reward. We have nothing to do with each other in the future." Su Wei left without hesitation. The group of red-haired youths stared blankly at her back. They didn't chase after her. "Boss, what should we do?" Nangong Jin said. "Wei Wei is already very strong. She doesn't need our protection for the time being. We should take turns to secretly follow her in case she gets into danger." After 3 years of slaying monsters in the deep mountains and forests, Su Wei felt that her strength should be pretty good. As for her school, she didn't care about it at all. She planned to go home and take a look. Now that she had achieved success in her cultivation, her parents wouldn't be like before. They wouldn't say that she was useless, right? No matter what, her parents would only say that she was bad and deny her in all sorts of ways. They were probably angry that she didn't go to school and suddenly disappeared. She didn't know if they were worried about her. But this was the current society. The weak were prey to the strong. Without strength, it was impossible to survive in this world. It had already been 3 years. Perhaps the outside world was already in chaos, right? 3 years ago, she was inadvertently exposed and found that her photos were all over the internet. The entire human race knew that she had the ability to steal things from other people's backpacks. At that time, she had planned to find a place to hide and cultivate. Otherwise, sooner or later, he would be beaten down by them. During this time, she received messages from Xie Xiaojun and Yi Chengjiang on their social media accounts, saying that they were looking for her. He asked her where she was and whether she had really stolen those things. She did not reply, thinking that these two people were stabbing her in the heart. Didn't he already understand? Even if she took something from someone else's treasure, if this divine artifact fell into their hands, they might be even worse off than her. The world was already in chaos. What was there to talk about? Survival was the most important thing. At this moment, in the whole world, those people who are not talented are probably having a hard time. Su Wei walked out of the forest and rode towards the city. Along the way, she didn't see many fights, and there were very few traces of fighting. She did see a few people here and there, but she didn't greet them. Chapter 3002. Those people didn't seem to have anything good on them. Another reason why she came out this time was that the highest quality equipment in her backpack was superior. There were no top-grade equipment, and there were even limited edition ones. With her current strength, it was no longer enough. She was almost at the proficiency level, and the divine artifact wrist was already very powerful. This time, she should be able to steal what she wanted. After a long time, she arrived at a city that was slightly further away from the forest. Su Wei looked at the scene in front of her and was a little stunned. The city was still a city, but in the city there were much fewer vehicles like cars. The roads were more spacious, and most people's vehicles had become mounts. In particular, there was a tag hanging on the neck of these mounts which was similar to a car plate. Su Wei was stunned for a moment. This seemed to be a little different from the apocalypse she had imagined. Moreover, everything on the streets was very orderly. Even if one was riding a mount, it was just like a car a few years ago. They wouldn't run around carelessly. There were red lights and green lights, and the streets were very clean. She also realized that there were some very different toilets on the side of the street. Upon closer inspection, she realized that they were specially designed for mounts. Mounts had many advantages. They were environmentally friendly and could be big or small. The higher the level, the more flexible they were. If they really ran, they wouldn't be worse than a car. Moreover, there were some mounts that could run on land or fly in the sky. The city seemed to be even better. Su Wei breathed in the clear air. The air didn't seem as bad as 3 years ago. Was this still the chaotic world she had imagined? Su Wei was a little flustered. She decided to find a hotel to stay in first. She thought that she still had some good things in her hands. It shouldn't be a problem to use these things to stay in a hotel. Even if it didn't work, she could come out and find someone to exchange. Moreover, She didn't know if money had been eliminated. When she went to the front desk of the hotel, she realized that money had not been eliminated. The one who recognized it was still the big red head. Then, Su-wei turned around and went to find someone to exchange money. She asked around and found a shop that specialized in selling equipment. From the looks of the streets, there were more shops that she had never seen before. They were all about new things that were produced after the world had assimilated. For example, some monsters' meat, skin, tendons, and a series of new things. Therefore, the equipment she took out still sold for some money. Then, she went to the hotel and planned to check into a room. She still has her ID. It's just, "Miss, your ID card has expired." Su-wei was surprised. She took the ID card and looked at it. "That's not right. My ID card has a 10-year expiration date. There are still several years before the expiration date." "Miss, did you come from a remote place?" the receptionist asked. Su-wei hurriedly nodded. "The place I came from is indeed very remote. This is my first time here." "That's probably because you're not well informed. Ever since the world was assimilated, there was a period of chaos. Later, due to the appearance of game characters, the country issued a regulation that required a new special identity card. The chip in your ID card is also different from before. As long as you remake your provincial ID card, it will input all your identity information. In the future, even if you don't have your ID card, you can still verify your identity through fingerprints, face, and pupil scans." Chapter 3003. Also, the country has issued rewards based on your strength. Once you reach a certain level, you can even go to the relevant departments to receive rewards. The first 1 or 2 years of assimilation were indeed chaotic. Many people had died because they were trying to snatch something from him. Fortunately, there was the graceful party in their country and the existence of the Tang Corporation. They had made great efforts to stabilize their country. It would not be like other countries, which were really chaotic and had all kinds of fights happening every day. "Is it so troublesome?" Su-wei was a little reluctant. Then, she asked, "Can I register my identity at any place?" "It's also possible in our county. Miss, you can just bring your own identity card there. If you have a game character with you, you can use your identity card to apply for a new identity card for the other party." Okay. It had been more than 3 years since that incident. Su-wei thought that most of those people had forgotten about her. Although it was not a chaotic time now, and the security seemed to be better than before, especially the patrols in the sky from time to time, and the patrols on mounts on the road from time to time, made her feel a little unfamiliar with this city. No matter what, she definitely needed an identity card to stay in a hotel, so she went to apply for one. When Su-wei finished applying for an identity card, she did not know that a certain special department had received news of Su-wei's appearance. Currently, they were rushing to this place to capture Su-wei. When Su-wei stole the backpack, if it were not for the new product developed by the Tang Corporation that upgraded the backpack security, they would have been on tenterhooks wherever they went. Tang Kuei was the first to know about this. At that time, he told Tang Gua, "Sister, Su-wei has appeared. The people over there know about it and are rushing to that small county to capture Su-wei." Tang Gua was not surprised. Su-wei would definitely appear. Will it be successful? What happened 3 years ago may not be enough evidence, Tang Kuei said with a smile, but will Su-wei be honest and not use that artifact? You're right. Tang Gua no longer paid much attention to Su-wei's affairs. She had achieved her goal by exposing Su-wei. The rules of this world did not allow an existence like Su-wei to exist. There would always be someone to deal with her. What about the group of redheads? He didn't follow her. He probably wanted to, but Su-wei wouldn't let him. Perhaps he was secretly following Su-wei. Game characters are nurtured. Until now, our data has not found any evidence that they would give up on the person who nurtured them. Tang Gua thought for a moment and asked, "What punishment will Su-wei receive after we catch her?" "Of course, she'll be charged with theft. She'll be locked up and sentenced. If it's serious, her powers will be sealed." Currently, they had not yet figured out how to deprive humans of their powers, but they had already figured out how to seal their powers. In fact, the former was just that many people did not want it to appear. Tang Kui understood what some people meant, so he did not continue to study in that direction. Now, in the whole human world, this place was the safest. Originally, he and Tang Gua did not want to interfere. Even if it developed into a world like the one in the plot, it was not a big deal. The other party's sincerity was enough. Everything he said moved them. Tang Rongyi also hoped that the previous order could be maintained. Chapter 3004. That's why Tang Kui and Tang Gua didn't hesitate to ask the Tang family to help them stabilize their territory. In fact, they were also hopeful about the current situation. The air was fresh and the country was peaceful. It was better than they imagined. They enjoyed such a quiet and stable life. As for Tang Rongyi, he joined the army. This was beyond Tang Gua's expectation. She didn't expect that Tang Rongyi had a dream of being a soldier. Now he led his soldiers to kill monsters and level up every day. Tang Rongyi joined the army, so did Enijun. Enijun was such a big shot. No place would refuse her, right? Tang Rongyi led the male soldiers while Enijun led the female soldiers. Although Tang Rongyi had made his attitude clear, Enijun also had her own ideas. She said that no one could control her. When she was capricious, no one could do anything but let her be. Bai Xiaowang followed Tang Rongyi. The big orange cat was assigned to Enijun by Tang Gua. As for Little Turtle, it stayed with her. The two friends were also entrusted with very important tasks. The two daughters she had raised were now receiving very important training. Tang Tung assigned them to Tang Kui. After all, it was very hard for Tang Kui to manage the company alone. Because of this, Tang Tung often cried and complained in front of Tang Gua. As for the 10,000 disciples of the Graceful Covenant sect, they were still part of the sect. They were assigned to various places by Tang Kui, but some of them would be borrowed from time to time. Then the laziest ones were Tang Gua and Su Gu. Su Gu only had eyes for Tang Gua. He didn't want to go anywhere. Unless there was a shortage of manpower 2 years ago and someone asked for help from Tang Gua, and Tang Gua agreed to help, Su Gu would follow her to solve the problem. Otherwise, no matter who came to him and cried for 3 days and 3 nights, it would be useless. This made everyone know that it was useless to kowtow in front of Su Gu. If they wanted Su Gu to help, they had to impress Tang Gua first. Every time it was Su Gu who made a move. Other than using her sword to intimidate those people, Tang Gua had not shown her strength. This made everyone think that Miss Tang Gua of the family was too delicate to cultivate. After all, they worshipped her like a jade bodhisattva, afraid that she would break and cause a disaster. Tang Gua didn't care about other people's opinions. Although her sense of existence had been weakened, it wasn't bad to live such a quiet and ordinary life occasionally. Occasionally, when she was bored and felt that she could find some excitement, she would agree to help those people and go on some missions with Su Gu. Now, all areas within the country were under control. Every citizen had the right to enter and slay monsters. If it was a small monster, it would belong to whoever killed it. If it was a big one, the equipment would be distributed according to the calculation of the damage. If a citizen made some contributions, they could use contribution points to exchange for things. If he didn't make any mistakes for a year, he would also be rewarded with some contribution points. Tang Gua would occasionally bring Su Gu and Little Tortoise to kill monsters together. Every time everyone looked at Little Tortoise, they knew who was coming. No one would be tactful enough to provoke them. This world was really too friendly. The system had long wanted to complain. What do you mean by too friendly? If you weren't so fierce, would they be so friendly? Host, you're really shameless. When Su Wei was caught, she had already stolen several pieces of high-level equipment. But before she had time to be happy, she was controlled. She wanted to resist, but found that all her experience points couldn't be used. Chapter 3005. When she was handcuffed, she was still in a daze. She could feel that her powers were completely restricted, but she did not panic. It was only when those people took the wristwatch from her wrist that she panicked and screamed for them not to take it away from her. But no one paid any attention to her. Their faces were cold as if they could not hear her. Su Wei was quickly put on trial. The record of her theft was there and there were countless witnesses. Moreover, Su Wei's willpower was not strong enough, so it did not take long for her to confess. Although there was no violence involved in the interrogation, just the mental pressure alone was not something that Su Wei could withstand. Tang Kuei had applied for the wristwatch a long time ago. So, after the wristwatch was recorded, it was sent to Tang Kor's Research Institute for analysis. In the end, Su Wei was sentenced to 10 years in prison. But that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that there was another sentence. Her powers would be restricted for 50 years. In other words, even if she was released after 10 years, she would not be able to use her powers for another 40 years. On the day Su Wei was sentenced, Tang Guo was there. When she saw that Su Wei had been sentenced, she felt happy. Su Gu could feel her happiness. He kissed the corner of her lips and whispered, "Honey, luckily you found out that she was a bad person." In Su Ji's mind, this was what he thought. System. Naive. Boss Wei Wei has been sentenced to 10 years in prison. What should we do? Nangong Jin frowned and thought for a long time. Let's think of a way to take her out. Take her back to where she came from and hide there. After a discussion, the group of red-haired men decided to kidnap Su Wei on the way. They thought that, with their abilities, they would be able to succeed. However, their car was stopped by a huge tortoise on the way. Tang Guo was sitting on the tortoise's back. She smiled and said to them, "Although you have become very strong, you will not be able to save her with your strength. If you fail, you will still go to prison. Not only that, you will also aggravate her crime. She stole from someone else and violated the rules of this world, so she needs to be locked up." Nangong Jin said stubbornly, "I just want to save Wei Wei. I don't care if I succeed or not. I want to try. She doesn't care about your life and death. Haven't you thought about living for yourself?" Nangong Jin said, "I don't know about this. I only know that if we save her, she will definitely be very sad without her freedom." "Aren't you sad to be hated by her?" Tang Guo patted Little Tortoise. She was just passing by and happened to see this group of red-haired men. He casually said, "Even if you go, you won't succeed. In this world, even if you succeed, I will still think of a way to get someone to capture her." Nangong Jin pursed his lips and looked at Tang Guo with an unfriendly gaze. "When I first met her, she wanted to steal something from me. I found out, but she didn't succeed. Although you care about her very much, her actions are against the interests of others. She was not the only one in this world. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself and her for not being able to defeat me." "Wife, are you really persuading them?" When Su Gu heard this, he felt that it did not sound like persuasion, but more like a show of strength. Chapter 3006. I'm just expressing my attitude to them. With me around, Su Wei will have to go to jail no matter what. So what if she had to go to jail for food? It wasn't like they wanted her life. Most likely, Su Wei still thought that they had gone too far. Sorry, she had really gone too far. Tang Guo left on Little Tortoise. Nangong Jin and the rest of the red-haired men eventually chose to save Su Wei. The result was as Tang Guo had expected. They failed and were completely wiped out. Not only were they sentenced, but their powers were also restrained. It wasn't as long as Su Wei's 50 years, and it wasn't long either. However, when they were caught, they clearly heard Su Wei's gloomy gaze as she stared at them and said, "As expected, you're all trash. Useless things." Tang Guo had asked them if they were sad. Of course, they were very sad now. In fact, every time they were rejected by Su Wei with disdain in her words, they felt sad in their hearts. How could they not be sad when they had always been hated and despised? They were no longer emotionless game characters. They were people with flesh and blood. The real world had given them flesh and blood, intelligence, life, and emotions. When they lost their mobility, Nangong Jin and the rest of the red-haired men didn't resist. It was as if they had already expected it. But when they heard Su Wei's words, they were even sadder. They buried their heads in silence. Because Nangong Jin and the rest were game characters, their identities were more special. They were also despised by Su Wei, so they were given identification cards. During their sentence, they had to attend classes every day. Like humans, they received different education. Because they were quite strong, the higher-ups felt that they should be properly reformed and nurtured. They couldn't let their lives be ruined because of a woman. 10 years later, Su Wei was released from prison. Nangong Jin and the rest of the red-haired men had long been released from prison. On the day Su Wei was released from prison, they came to pick up Su Wei. But it was different from before. The way they looked at Su Wei was no longer as pitiful and affectionate as before. Instead, it was very calm. There was no hatred or resentment, as if it was a kind of relief. Su Wei looked at them with disdain. She walked up to them and said, "I didn't expect you to be the ones who came to pick me up. Wei Wei, congratulations on regaining your freedom. Live well in the future and don't take other people's things." Nangong Jin said. Su Wei almost scolded him, but she held it in. She didn't have any strength now. Her parents had looked at her with disgust, and those who knew her were all pointing fingers at her. Only this group of red-haired idiots would be so loyal to her, so if she wanted to live well, she really had to rely on them. "All right, let's go. Wei Wei, we still have a mission. Today is the day you're released from prison. We've applied for half a day off to tell you something." Nangong Jin handed a bouquet of lilies to Su Wei. "We already understand that our actions in the past will bring you a lot of trouble. We've read a lot of books and understand human feelings. It's not wishful thinking on her part. We've been forcing you so you won't like it. When both parties are together, both parties have to like it. Otherwise, it's harassment." Su Wei was relieved when she took the lilies. She didn't expect to hear such words. "So, we won't disturb you in the future. We wish you happiness," Nangong Jin said sincerely. Nangong Jin said very sincerely, "The book says that we are no longer characters in a game, but real people. Everyone should have their own independent thoughts and not be bound by anyone. Everything had to be built on one's willingness. Wei Wei, I hope you can live well in the future. Wei Wei, we're leaving." Before Su Wei could say anything, the red-haired group got into a big truck. The truck door closed and Su Wei watched the truck leave quickly. She stood on the spot with the lilies in her arms. In the end, she yelled and threw the lilies on the ground. She stomped on them and said, "Get out! Get out! All of you! None of you are sincere. You've really let it go? Boss, don't worry. We've all let it go. Thank you for your help. We've all understood the principles in the books." Nangong Jin said. Tang Rongyi was satisfied. "That's good. Xiaogua asked about you guys before. We've offended Miss Tang before. We hope you can apologize for us." Xiaogua doesn't mind. She's sweeping the world with her man and pet every day. Haven't you seen the news? Tang Rongyi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That daughter was really naughty. Nangong Jin said seriously, "Yes. Miss Tang has become the savior of the world again. She's being worshipped by a small country and they treat her as God. Those people are still surprised that God is a girl with a man and a pet tortoise. They treat the tortoise as their guardian beast and build statues for it everywhere. After all, other than God, who would come down from the sky with a flying tortoise?" Tang Rongyi was so amused that he burst into laughter. These red-haired boys were really interesting. Luckily, he saved them in time and didn't fall into Su Wei's trap. Later on, Su Wei often watched the group of red-haired men on the big screen receiving awards one after another and being hailed as heroes by others. At this time, heroes didn't need to hide anymore. They were very powerful and no one dared to do anything to them. They should be known by everyone. Once, she couldn't help but pick up a piece and throw it at them. In the end, she was arrested and detained for a few days. She didn't dare to do anything again. But in the middle of the night, she regretted it. Actually, they weren't that bad. Chapter 3007. After this, I don't know when we'll be able to meet again. Tang Kuei sat beside Tang Gua's bed, his tone a little sad. "Let's keep in touch." "Okay." Tang Gua leaned against the pillow. "Although I also want to live for a few more years and be able to spend more time with my brother. I can control many things, but this is the only thing I can't control. After so many years, I can only extend it by 20 years. Unless it was the kind of situation where the original owner lived for a very long time in a world. then she would live in this world for a very long time. It's okay. Send more emails in the future. When you're free, take some photos of the worlds you've been in and let your little system send them over by email. Okay. Tang Kue hugged Tangua. I'm very lucky to be able to meet a girl like you. I hope that we can meet again in the Spacetime Bureau in a long time. At that time, you won't have to travel endlessly anymore. There's been no news from boss. I sent him many emails before, but I didn't receive any reply. So, for the time being, there's no way to ask him what's going on here. Tangua didn't care about these things for a long time. She was already very happy now. In each of the subsequent worlds, she lived happily. Even if she wasn't happy, she would find a way to make herself happy. If anyone made her unhappy, she would definitely make them unhappy for the rest of their lives. Time passes too fast, too short. Tang Kue let go of Tangua and stood up. I'll call Su Gu in, otherwise he'll find me for no reason to fight. In any case, this was still his sister. That guy's conduct really hadn't changed much. As her brother, couldn't he say a few more words to his sister? When Tangua left this world, many people were very sad. Especially some small countries that regarded her as their savior. When they heard that their god had disappeared, they hugged their heads and cried. When their world was in chaos, when they were being burned and looted, the girl who descended from the sky on a flying tortoise was already the savior in their hearts. When Tangua left, Su Gu was very calm. But the next day, they found Su Gu lying in the room, without a sound. He was clearly a very powerful person, and there were not many people in this world who could surpass his martial prowess. According to the world's recalculated lifespan, Su Gu could live for at least 500 years. But after Tangua left, his life seemed to have followed her. Host, if you are sad, you can cry in secret. This is your office. No one dares to come in without your permission. Fortunately, Tang Kue had been bound to them for so many years. 111 could still capture that Tang Kue was very sad and unhappy. This sadness was not because of Tangua's death, because they all knew that Tangua was not really dead. She had gone somewhere else. At this moment, he might have already reached another small world and become another person. Host, look at your younger brother, Tang Tang, he's different. At your wild sister's funeral, he cried so loudly that he could fully express his sadness. You'll get sick if you hold it in, so it's better to let it out. To be honest, he had never seen his host cry before. My way of venting is different, Tang Kue sneered. When I'm unhappy, I prefer to tear down the system. It's for people like you who talk too much. 111 damn, he was comforting his host. This heartless guy actually wanted to tear him down every day. 111, who was silent, hurriedly sent a message to little Tongzi. Brother, comfort me. I've been scolded by the host again. He wants to tear me down when he's unhappy. Chapter 3008. Host. I received an email from 111. At this moment, Tangua did not immediately go to the pocket world. Instead, she went to the bottom of the heavenly spring. She came to look at the lights. As expected, the heavenly spring was even brighter. From afar, it looked like it had lit up the entire galaxy. Compared to before, there was one more light. She could take 2 more steps forward, but she still could not reach the end. If she wanted to reach the end, where there were dots of light like a passageway, she did not know how many more lights she had to light up. She returned to the shore. Wearing a light blue dress, she sat by the water and paddled her feet in the water. She looked at her reflection in the water. This soul was hers, so the appearance of the reflection was naturally hers as well. Let 111 bear with it. Brother is definitely unhappy now. Didn't I just say a few words to him? It's not like I really tore him apart. Brother usually takes care of him when he goes out on missions. Isn't it just a few words to him? Just a few words and he gets the title of Outstanding System. Isn't he satisfied? System. Okay. I'll reply to him right away. Let's go to the next world. I want to light up the remaining lights. Although I don't know how long it will take, I finally have something to strive for in life. When Tangua appeared in the next world, 111 happened to receive an email from the system. After reading the email, his entire body was in a bad mood. He fiercely replied to the system. The system looked at the reply. There were only 2 words. "We're done with each other." The system felt like it was going to die of laughter. Done with each other? He made it sound like they were friends. What did he mean by done with each other? They were not friends. This 111 was lazy and stupid. He actually had a serial number. He was obviously a good-for-nothing system, but the Space-Time Bureau actually gave him an award year after year. If he had a serial number, he would be the strongest system. What best title? He would not have the chance to be a good-for-nothing system like 111. After ignoring the stingy 111, the system took advantage of the time when Tangua was adapting to her new body and quickly read the storyline. "Dear host, are you used to it? Okay, accept the storyline. Even if I don't accept it now, my chest is about to explode. This body seems to have just been angry. Today was the weekend. The original owner was angry because she had just returned from a banquet. Something had happened at the banquet, and she had no way to vent her anger. At the banquet, her parents were both present. Not only were his parents present, but his parents' cheating partners and their children were also present. Those 2 children were only 1 or 2 years younger than her, but they brought their illegitimate children to the banquet. Her parents even asked her to greet them and play with them. How could she not be angry? Of course, outsiders did not know the identities of these 2 illegitimate children. In the eyes of outsiders, Father Tang and Mother Tang had always maintained a harmonious relationship on the surface. Everyone thought that they were incomparably loving. What was even more unacceptable to her was that during the holidays, their family would gather together with their cheating partners and illegitimate children. The harmonious scene was really unbelievable. What she couldn't accept the most was that her parents wanted her to get along well with the 2 illegitimate children. They said that they were her younger siblings, and as the elder sister, she had to take care of them. As a young girl who was only 15 or 16 years old, if this was the first time she knew about this, she might have already fallen out with him. Not only did she not fall out with them, but she also cooperated with them to maintain the appearance of a happy family of 3. Since she was young, in the eyes of others, she was happy. None of the misfortune had ever visited her. She did not have to worry about food or clothing. She had a chauffeur to take her to and from school. Her parents would definitely attend the parent-teacher conference, no matter how busy they were. She had always been envied and proud of this. She wanted to let everyone know that she lived such a happy life with a loving and loving pair of parents. It was only when she entered junior high school that she realized that all of this was an illusion. She had tried all kinds of unreasonable things, but she still could not restore this family to the way she wanted. Chapter 3009. Seeing that she was making a fuss, the 2 of them even confessed to her that they only got married for the sake of benefits and did not love each other at all. The so-called cheating partner was the one they truly loved. This was what they had discussed from the beginning. For the sake of mutual benefits, they had always maintained harmony in the family. They hoped that she could understand them. They could not be with their true love and could only use this compromise. Wasn't this telling the original owner that her appearance was also a compromise? When she found out that she had a younger brother and sister, she could not accept it. She was even more afraid of being abandoned by her parents and not liking her. So, she compromised and helped them maintain harmony in the family. In the eyes of her classmates, she was blessed and could have anything she wanted. Every time someone said that they envied her, she did not know how to respond. Actually, she did not seem to be that blessed. Every time she saw her parents' so-called true love, she felt very upset. She could even feel the coldness in their eyes when they looked at her, as if they thought she was an eyesore. Perhaps, without her, their 2 illegitimate children could have openly married and given birth to children, right? The 2 illegitimate children were polite to her on the surface, but behind her back, they ignored her and mocked her. Other than that, they would show off in front of her how much her parents liked them, what limited edition gifts they bought for them, and when they took them to play. When she was younger, she had argued with them. Both her parents said that she should give in to her younger brother and sister at her age. After so many years, She already understood that no matter how much trouble she caused, her parents cared about the two illegitimate children the most. She could not lose her parents who had doted on her since she was young, so she could only be more obedient and try not to make them angry or provoke the two illegitimate children. Every time they had a gathering, the two illegitimate children would team up and bring others over to isolate her. At such a young age, no matter how she tried to maintain it, others would see that she was unhappy. She did not care to play with them. Because of this, outsiders would say that the eldest daughter of the Tang family was a cold person with a bad temper. They would also say that it was Father and Mother Tang who spoiled her. Living in such an environment for 3 years made her temper worse and worse, and she would get angry at the slightest thing. Sometimes, she just wanted to attract her parents' attention. However, her parents only thought that they had spoiled her and did not understand why she had a temper. Even in school, her classmates still didn't like her personality. According to the original plot, when she entered high school and changed to a new environment, she would meet someone who could save her. This person could finally bring her out of her parents' shadow. However, she was just a female supporting character in the novel. She was the original female lead in the novel with a very bad character setting. The real female lead was someone else. She was someone who had read this book before. Her name was Lin Manman. Moreover, Lin Manman had not finished reading the book. She had only read a small part of it before throwing it away. This was because in the first part of the book, Tang Guo was described as a very pretentious person. The original male lead was called Yen Geng. Ever since he got together with Tang Guo often doubted whether he was not loyal and whether he really liked her. Even if Yen Geng said a few words to other girls, she would be suspicious and lose her temper with Yen Geng and quarrel with him. The truth about Tang Guotang's temper, her unforgiving nature, and her frequent quarrels with Yen Geng would be revealed at the end of the novel. However, Lin Manman could not persevere to the end. After reading this small part, she decided to give up. She felt that Yen Geng was unworthy. She really did not understand how a person like Tang Guotang could be the female lead. However, when she woke up and transmigrated into a cannon fodder female supporting character in the novel, she absorbed the memories of the cannon fodder female supporting character and did not sympathize with Yen Geng anymore. Chapter 30:10. This cannon fodder female supporting character was terrible, and she had seen part of it in the book. In short, the book described Lin Manman as insensible and often tried to get close to Yen Geng. Even if she did not like Tang Guo, she did not like people like Lin Manman. In the end, she was Lin Manman now. She still looked down on what Lin Manman had done in the past, but Yen Geng's disdain and coldness towards Lin Manman made her have a bad impression of him. The original Lin Manman liked to eat all kinds of fried food and snacks, and puffed food made it easy for her to gain weight. Not only that, but she also liked to eat chili, causing small pimples on her forehead and chin. In terms of image, it was easy for people to dislike her, especially when Lin Manman was often infatuated with Yen Geng. Every time, she would secretly say that she wanted to lose weight, but when she turned to look at the food, she would forget about it. There were a few times when Yen Geng and Tang Guo had a conflict. Lin Manman even comforted Yen Geng and said that if it was not suitable, he should not force it. Tang Guo was a rich missy, and it was normal for her to have a bad temper. In the end, not only was she rebuked by Tang Guo, but she also almost broke down under Yen Geng's cold and sharp gaze. Now that Lin Manman had become another Lin Manman, she did not think of snatching Yen Geng away. The original Lin Manman liked it, but she did not. She did not like being left behind by others at all. However, she was not willing to let those two have their way either. After all, she hated the Tang Guo described in the book. Even if Yen Geng hated her a little, he should not be entangled with someone like Tang Guo. When Lin Manman transmigrated, she brought a system with her. The system was not very advanced, and it would give out missions periodically. After completing the missions, she would be given a certain reward. As if it knew what she needed, the reward for the first mission was actually a weight loss pill. The first mission was very difficult, and that was to gain Yen Geng's favor. Luckily, it did not require too much, just 10 points. Lin Manman thought of many ways, and after completing the first mission, she started to lose weight. She did not like fried food and did not have the habit of staying up late, so the pimples had dissipated a lot. The weight loss pill would not take effect so quickly, and the effect would be to slowly lose weight. At this time, Yen Gung actually had a certain level of interaction with Tanghua, and it could be considered that they had a good impression of each other. If he took a step further, he would be able to develop another relationship. But Lin Manman's main mission was currently with Yen Gung, so she had no choice but to come over to gain Yen Gung's favor. The original owner of the body could not stand this and had targeted Lin Manman a few times. Lin Manman's cheat was not strong at this point, so she was naturally targeted very badly. Lin Manman's pathetic state made Yen Gung, who no longer hated her, pity her. A few times, when the original owner and Lin Manman were in conflict, Yen Gung unknowingly spoke up for Lin Manman. She felt that Lin Manman hadn't done anything wrong. She was going overboard by deliberately picking on her. Given the environment that the original owner of the body grew up in, how could he tolerate such words? He had a huge argument with Yen Gung and left. Even after Yen Gung went to apologize, he did not return to how he was before. Because of the mission, Lin Manman had to gain Yen Gung's favor. Moreover, she wasn't trying to seduce Yen Gung to be her boyfriend. It was just that she was more active in some activities so that Yen Gung could see that she wasn't the terrible person he used to be and become friends. In the end, Tanggua's reaction was the same as in the book. She even sympathized with Yen Gung a little. In the end, Yen Gung and Tanggua only had a good impression of each other. Before they could start, because of Lin Manman's mission, their fate was cut off. The original owner of the body hated that Yen Gung didn't reject a girl like Lin Manman from getting close to him. He even spoke up for Lin Manman when they were in conflict. This reminded her of the treatment she suffered at home and their parents who each had their true love. After that, they went through a lot of trouble. Lin Manman joined the school's newspaper team, and the person in charge was Yen Gung. Because he had to organize activities from time to time, Yen Gung often stood her up and did not go to the library with her. When she found out that he was drawing the newspaper with Lin Manman, chatting and laughing, she couldn't stand it at all. She smashed the chalk box hard and turned to leave. Only then did she break off contact with Yen Gung. Chapter 30:11. Even though Yen Gung liked her a little, because of the original owner's eccentricity and violence, as well as interacting with a gentle girl like Lin Manman, he couldn't stand the original owner's temper and gradually broke it off. After that, Yen Gung was attracted to Lin Manman's beauty. After that, Lin Manman started a side mission. It turned out that she had to compete with Tanggua in some activities and competitions. In short, this side quest basically consisted of a small test, a big test, a normal test, a recital, a speech, and a performance. As long as he surpassed Tanggua, even if it was just a little bit, he would be able to complete the quest. Lin Manman had no choice. She couldn't possibly not do the mission, right? And it was all fair competition. She didn't damage Tanggua's pen or test paper. She just did the mission and didn't do anything else. If she beat Tanggua, she would be able to get the reward. Side missions were different from the main mission. They could be abandoned. Hence, when she couldn't surpass Tanggua at the start, Lin Manman directly gave up the mission. Later on, as she received more and more rewards, she surpassed Tanggua in many aspects. The only thing that she didn't surpass was Tanggua's results. In terms of results, the original owner put in a lot of effort. Every parent-teacher conference was the happiest thing for her. Because on that day, her parents would agree to her request and attend the parent-teacher conference together. If she didn't do well, she would disappoint them, although she didn't know if they would care. Because of the original owner's personality and Lin Manman's change, this made Lin Manman very popular. Everyone felt that she was easy to get along with. She was a gentle and beautiful girl with countless suitors. She could often see Yen Gung arguing with other competitors, which made many girls envious. Lin Manman still didn't like Yen Gung. No matter where, she rejected Yen Gung and didn't give him any hope. But Yen Gung was already attracted to her. Even if she didn't like him, he would like her silently. And Lin Manman still remembered what Yen Gung said to the original owner. She showed a look of disgust and ignored him. Later on, many things happened. More and more people hated the original owner. They felt that she was always against Lin Man and had bad intentions. At home, her parents thought that she was insensible, spoiled, and did not dote on her younger siblings. Especially after hearing about her reputation in school, he even told her to restrain herself and not to target students who were more outstanding than her for no reason. Her parents had only said these things because Lin Man had met her male lead. That male lead couldn't stand the fact that the original host was targeting Lin Man, so he gave the family Tang a warning. The male lead was a big shot, but Lin Man found out that he was a shining piece of gold. Thereafter, he only doted on Lin Man. On the surface, the two illegitimate children treated her kindly and persuaded their parents not to blame her. When their parents turned around, although the two illegitimate sons did not scold her, they would look at her with pride and ridicule, as if asking her what she could do to them. After she went crazy, her parents would think that she was insensible. At this time, her mind had long been warped. Problems had arisen, and her rationality no longer existed. Later on, Lin Man's missions were more successful and she received more rewards. During the college entrance examination, she even surpassed the original owner's results. All of the things she had been so proud of were shattered, and her entire person collapsed. In front of the illegitimate children, she could no longer control her temper. Every time she would fall out with them, this made her parents hate her more and more. In her world, she could no longer find anyone to save her. In the end, she was like a crazy person with no rationality. No, she should be a mad dog. She would bite whoever she saw. Every time she bit someone, she would end up in a miserable state. She lived in a daze. On the other hand, Lin Man had found the person she liked and reached the peak of her life. Behind her, there was a group of pursuers that she despised. Her life was very comfortable. Occasionally, when she heard about Tang Guo's experience, she would sigh. Life was a joke. Chapter 30:12. After receiving the memories, Tang Guo went downstairs to look for food. Because of the anger she had suffered at the banquet, the original owner did not eat much. In the end, after the banquet, she was sent back by the chauffeur. Her parents, after parting with her, went to their true love's place. For the sake of convenience, her parents' true love lived in the same place, so that they could live together as a family. So every time they attended a banquet together, they seemed to be on good terms with her parents, so no one suspected anything. Her parents went to their house to visit. When they went in, they were with their true loves. When they came out, they were polite again, as if there was nothing between them and there was no relationship between them. The reason why they still did this was that the elders of the two families were still alive. It was the elders of the two families who had broken up their true love. The elders of the two families held a lot of shares in the company. If they knew what they had done, they probably would not give them the shares. They would probably wait until the elders of the two families were dead and they inherited the shares. Then the relationship between them would be broken. In Tang Guo's memory, the couple did not seem to get what they wanted. It seemed that the elders of the two families found out that they were secretly with their true love and had a child. They were very angry and did not know what exactly they had done. Because the original owner's memories were muddled, she was not clear about the details. But she knew that the couple's wishful thinking did not succeed. There was a nanny at home, who was specially hired by the couple to take care of Tang Guo, because they often met with their true love for entertainment, business. In particular, their true love for each other made them appear to be a family, which made them even bolder. They often asked Tang Guo out to play. Because Tang Guo worked hard in school, they had an excuse that they could not take her with them because she had to study hard. In fact, they knew very well why they did not take her with them. In this world, Tang Guo hated the original owner's parents the most. She did not believe that her parents did not know what their illegitimate child was doing behind their backs. At this thought, she stopped eating. Since her parents should have known about their illegitimate children's little tricks, how could the elders of the two families, who were such powerful people, be kept in the dark so well? Could it be that the elders of the two families really didn't know anything? Although they had hidden it well, it was possible that outsiders who did not understand them were unaware of this matter. However, the elders of the two families attached great importance to this matter. Did they really not know? As Tangwa ate, she asked the system to open the chat interface in the group and connected the interface to her phone. She would be able to eat while looking at her phone and chatting with her friends in the group. With the upgrade of the system, it could help her do many things. Seeing Tangwa come out, the people in the group were very happy. They all asked her how she was doing. Usually, they would chat occasionally, but they felt that no amount of chatting was enough. Margaret, as expected, we're not in the magic world again. My stars are about to fall from my anticipation. Campus Belle, when will you come? To use a very popular saying in your country, the flowers are about to wither. Chapter 30:13. School Bell. Margaret, although I want to come to your world too, it's not something I can control. She was different from the people in the Time Bureau. She was sent to random worlds. She couldn't choose where she wanted to go. Margaret, because of your arrival, I've been looking for people who look like the main character for the past few years. I even went to many poor places to see if there were any little boys or girls who fit the role of the main character. Ziyun, did you find any? Margaret, no. Those children shivered in fear when they saw me. They didn't look like the main character at all. I'm so disappointed. Chi Xiao. Ha 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 ha. Margaret, are you trying to make everyone laugh? School Bell, are you still looking for them? Margaret, I even went to the elf tribe. I didn't find any elves who sneaked out to play. The elves are very smart. They won't sneak out to play. Because of my arrival, their chief had a vigilant talk with me. He asked me if I wanted to harm their elves, and he even negotiated many conditions with me. He wanted me to take the benefits and leave. The elves were really weak, and he hoped that I would let them go. So sad. Do I look like a bad person? Seeing Margaret's words, the people in the group laughed like crazy. Margaret was so powerful. It would be strange if they weren't afraid. Margaret, I've also been to the magnificent royal palace and the shabby corners of the royal palace, looking for abandoned princes and princesses. However, the princes and princesses in the royal palace have always been receiving a good education. They've never been abandoned at all. I also went everywhere to look for them. It looked strange, especially in some dangerous places. I've saved many people who were in danger, but they aren't the main characters. For this, I even took in a few disciples. They are so talented that I couldn't help it. Tangwa almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This Margaret is really interesting. School Bell. I came to a new world this time. My family is more complicated. My parents don't like me very much. Although they are married, they have their own true love. I'm just a combination of them to complete a mission. It should be considered as an explanation to the elders. Tangwa briefly told the story of this world and shared it with everyone. Everyone in the group knew that this was not a dangerous world, so they let out a sigh of relief. While chatting with her friends, she ate 2 bowls of rice, probably because she was extremely hungry. In the end, she told everyone about her initial plans and said goodbye. Today was Saturday, and the sky was already dark. Her parents had already told her that they would not be coming back because they still had a social engagement today. In fact, everyone was well aware of where they had gone. Tomorrow was Sunday. Tangwa planned to visit her grandfather in the morning and her grandfather in the afternoon. Speaking of which, the original owner was afraid of losing her parents. She was also afraid that she would be laughed at and abandoned by her parents. She even hid it from the 2 old men. She carefully analyzed the memories of the original owner of the body and the 2 old men's interactions. At that time, both her grandfathers had asked her if she was doing well in school. Did she suffer any grievances? Of course, the host would say that she was fine and didn't suffer any grievances. Now that she thought about it carefully, Tangwa believed that the 2 old men must have known something. Of course, this was just her guess. She would only know what was going on when she met him tomorrow. Chapter 30:14. Early the next morning, Tangwa called her grandfather and said that she would go to see him in a while. She could tell that Elder Tang was very happy. He even said that he would ask someone to prepare something delicious for her and was waiting for her. As for the original owner's homework, Tangwa finished it in 3 hours after dinner last night. Elder Tang had basically retired, but he still held a large portion of the company's shares. Currently, he bought a piece of land in a village with better air and built a small villa. Because he thought that the road was difficult to walk on, he personally paid for the road to be repaired. He also had a good relationship with the people in the surrounding villages. When he had nothing to do, he would plant some flowers and vegetables. His days were leisurely and he basically did not care about the outside world. Unless the situation was serious enough, he would not intervene. Of course, the chauffeur sent Tangwa there. After sending Tangwa there, she asked the chauffeur to go back and wait for her notice. As soon as she got out of the car, she saw Elder Tang standing at the entrance of the villa. She quickly walked over and called out, "Grandpa, hey you little girl, come in quickly. The sun is up. Don't stay out here." Elder Tang smiled lovingly. Even though many people said that this granddaughter had a bad temper, he only had one granddaughter. Of course, he still doted on her. But he did not know when it started. Not only did this girl have a strange temper, but she also rarely came over and did not communicate with him. This time, Elder Tang was very surprised that Tangwa came over. He thought that this girl had been led astray by her parents. But now, he saw that this girl was in good spirits. She did not look as bad as others said. Furthermore, his Xiaogua had excellent results. She came in first every year and won awards in other activities. Wasn't she just a little spoiled? Miss Family Tang could not be someone who did not have a temper at all. Tangwa nodded and walked in with her arm around Elder Tang's arm. In her hand, she was holding a gift for him. When Elder Tang saw that it was tea leaves, he quickly ordered someone to make tea. It was rare. It was really rare. His granddaughter was finally a little more sensible. Little Gua has become a big girl. She's more sensible than before. Elder Tang took a sip of the tea and felt that the tea was good. It was really good. He didn't expect his granddaughter to have such good taste. "Why did you suddenly come to visit Grandpa?" "I miss Grandpa." "Ha ha ha, is that so?" Elder Tang stared at Tangwa. Seeing the sincerity on her face, he was stunned for a moment. "All right. Since you miss me, come over often. The air here is good, and at noon you can eat the vegetables that Grandpa personally planted. They're better than the ones sold in the city. They're crispy and delicious, and I guarantee that you'll like them once you try them. By the way, where are your parents? Why didn't you come with me?" "Mom and Dad don't know. I came to see Grandpa alone," Tangwa said. Elder Tang gently shook his head again and suddenly asked, "Why don't you tell me the same thing as before? That your parents were busy with business and they asked you to come and visit me?" "Because I don't want to lie to the elderly," Tangwa said sincerely. Now, she could basically confirm that this Elder Tang knew everything. It wasn't that he didn't care about the original owner's matters. It was just that the original owner was never willing to tell him. In the original plot, the original owner was able to live to the end of her life. Every time she did something crazy, she wasn't killed. Perhaps it was because of this Elder Tang. The Peak. Chapter 30:15. Xiaogua, you've suddenly become so sensible. Have you been wronged? Elder Tang asked straightforwardly. He had already asked this question many times. He even told the brat that if she had been wronged or unhappy, she had to tell him. But this stubborn brat refused to say anything. She even said she was fine. The way she tried her best to hide it made it difficult for him to continue asking. It wasn't that he didn't want to get involved in some matters. But things had already gotten to this point. If there was no one to support her, even if he caused a ruckus, it would be useless. He really hoped that this brat could mature a little so that when she grew up, she could stand on her own. It could be said that he was waiting for his only granddaughter to grow up. Once his granddaughter grew up, he would be able to do something and have something to look forward to. After Elder Tang asked this question, he continued to stare at Tangwa. He was afraid that this time, she would swallow all the grievances that were about to come out of her mouth. Yes, this was the reason why Tangwa was here. The original owner of this body found it difficult to say certain things, because she couldn't bear to part with her parents' love. She was afraid that they would abandon her and hate her. When the truth was first exposed, her parents warned her not to tell their elders about it. Otherwise, there would be serious consequences. They even said that if they caused a ruckus, they would divorce and be with their true love. The original owner of this body probably couldn't accept this result, so she endured it and kept it a secret. What happened that made my Xiao Gua feel wronged? Hurry and tell grandfather. Grandfather will help you get justice. Hearing Elder Tang's words of concern, Tang Gua immediately felt all the emotions of the original owner of this body. The grievance that erupted from her chest could no longer be hidden. Her eyes immediately turned red. Seeing this, Elder Tang's heart ached as he quickly comforted her. No matter who bullied Xiao Gua, grandfather will teach them a lesson. His words were already very obvious. Tang Gua did not waste any time as she organized her thoughts. As if she could no longer keep this secret, she started from the day that the original owner of this body discovered the truth. Halfway through, Elder Tang instructed someone to give Elder Lin, who was Tang Gua's grandfather, a phone call. Tang Gua didn't stop him. She didn't expect Elder Tang to call Elder Lin over. That's good too. It's time to lay my cards on the table with these two old men. The original owner cared about her parents, but she really didn't care about these two old people who cared more about her. If he had told the old man earlier, even if he met Lin Man later on and was surpassed by her in all sorts of ways, he wouldn't have broken down. In life, she would be surpassed by many people. Sometimes she would break down emotionally, not because she was surpassed, but because the things that surpassed her were the only things she could be proud of and live on. Other than here, she couldn't find any other place to exist. Tang Gua and the two old people talked for the whole morning. It was all the words that the original owner wanted to say to people. Since that pair of parents didn't care about her, they still wanted her to take care of those two illegitimate children whom they truly loved. Then, they would have to accept the consequences of treating her this way. Weren't they forced to be together? Why did he say that he was forced? It was because he couldn't bear to part with his family's assets. Speaking of which, he was just too greedy and wanted everything. He wanted true love, but he also wanted all of the family Lin's assets. Vertex. Chapter 30:16. If they were asked to give up their assets and be with their true love, the elders of the two families would not be able to stop them. They wanted their assets and wanted to share their success with their true love. Then she was really sorry, but the Lin family and family Tang's assets would belong to her from now on. This girl has been wronged. Old Master Lin patted Tang Gua's shoulder. Your grandfather and I have been waiting for you to speak up and say that you have been wronged. Because only when you speak up will it mean that you are willing to give up on them. Old Master Lin's words were already very obvious. Once she chose to speak up, the two elders would not sit back and do nothing. When the time came, most of the Lin family and family Tang's assets would fall on her head. Then she would have a conflict with her parents. In that case, it could be considered as giving up on them. That's right. We asked you so many times, but you didn't say anything. Grandfather couldn't ask anymore. I was afraid that if he asked again, you wouldn't be able to control your temper. If she couldn't even control her temper, how could they be assured to hand things over to her in the future? They were afraid that if they gave it to her, the two dogs at home would be coaxed. That would drive them to death. Dad and Mom said that they didn't love each other. In the end, they had no choice but to be together. It was all forced by Grandpa and Grandpa. Old Master Lin was the first to spit. Two little bastards. What do you mean we forced them to be together? It's all because they got together with some shady people. Do you think that the two true loves they got together with are simple? Old Tang and I didn't matchmake them. It was just that they thought of this method themselves. Back then, Old Tang and I did have the idea of a marriage alliance, but they didn't seem to agree, so we didn't force them. Later, they each brought someone they liked and said that they wanted to get married, Old Tang said. We knew their every move. Those two people's motives weren't simple. In short, they didn't come with good intentions. They weren't good people. At that time, Old Lin and I discussed it and asked them to sign a prenuptial agreement. In the end, before the two of them said anything, your parents were unwilling. They said that this was the person they really liked. If they signed a prenuptial agreement, it would be too hurtful. I don't know what kind of bewitching potion those two people fed them, but they were coaxed in circles. Later, we even spread the word that if they really wanted to get married, they might as well give up their family's assets. They could get married however they wanted. Old Master Lin added, even if we ask them to give up their assets, they're still our children. They can't really not care about anything. The result was good. After a period of time, the two of them came and said that they were true love and wanted to get married. Elder Tang laughed in anger. We agreed. But they were afraid that we wouldn't believe them, so they went to find someone to give birth to you. Tang Guo was silent for a moment. So I was born on their behalf? That's right. Old Master Lin wasn't afraid that Tang Guo wouldn't be able to accept it. During those 2 years, your mother stayed abroad. In the middle of the 2 years, she called back and said that she was pregnant and planned to recuperate there. Took me more than a year to raise you. In the end, I carried you back. I didn't believe them, so I sent people to look for them. Only then did I find out that they had each taken their own seeds and gave birth to you. Old Master Tang sighed. Because we were around, they didn't treat you harshly. These 2 years have become more and more outrageous. Xiaogua can't even accept those things. How would the two of us dare to say these things to you? Old Master Lin patted Tang Guo's head. Your grandfather and I are very happy that you were able to come here today. Peak. Chapter 30:17. Although Grandpa is very angry about this, he can fire them immediately so that they won't be able to get anything, Elder Tang said. But Grandpa hopes that Xiaogua can grow up and become the most outstanding person in the world. He wants to surpass them and take over the business that Grandpa and Grandpa have built. He wants to personally chase them out and show them how outstanding Xiaogua is. Elder Tang and Elder Lin had long given up on Tang Guo's parents. They seemed to be very successful, but in reality, they had been subdued and their heads were the same. Some things were instigated by the two so-called true loves. Grandpa won't force you. Xiaogua can slowly consider it. After finding out that the two people were actually the original owner of the body, Tang Guo was even more disheartened. She didn't know if the original owner of the body knew about this later on. She probably didn't know. Later on, she broke down completely. These two elders probably couldn't say anything about it. I'll listen to Grandpa and Grandpa. This matter wasn't urgent. If it was too fast, it would alert the enemy. The two of them agreed, but reminded her to come over often. They even said that they would video call her when they were free and teach her some things. At this point, the conversation between the two parties ended. Tang Guo ate the vegetables that Elder Tang personally planted for lunch and went home in the afternoon. When she got home, Father Tang and Mother Tang weren't back yet. According to their nature, they should be playing with their true love children today. She couldn't be bothered to ask. She tidied up, had dinner, and went to bed. On Monday, Tang Guo woke up early. After breakfast, the chauffeur sent her to school. At this time, she and Yen Geng were already familiar with each other and would often meet in the library to study. Especially in the afternoon when everyone else was taking a nap, they would all go to the library to read. When it came to studying, the original owner had never slacked off. Tang Guo arrived at the classroom and bumped into Yen Geng, who had just walked in from another room. Morning, Tang Guo. Tang Guo smiled at Yen Geng. Morning. Looking at this clean smile, Yen Geng was stunned for a moment. Tang Guo quickly stopped smiling. She was smiling so beautifully now. Would Yen Geng's feelings for her increase? By then, he wouldn't be able to see Lin Manman's good side, right? So she pulled a long face and made herself look gloomy. I'm going in. Such a Tang Guo made Yen Geng think that it was just an illusion. Good morning, Yen Geng. Lin Manman's voice came from behind. Tang Guo turned around and saw Lin Manman walking over from afar with a smile on her face. When she saw Yen Geng, she greeted him politely. From this, she could guess that Lin Manman must have transmigrated here. She greeted Yen Geng with a smile because she wanted to gain Yen Geng's favor and complete her main mission. When Lin Manman came closer, Tang Guo could tell from her eyes that she did not like Yen Geng at all. Tongzi, I can't break my character setting. I broke it just now. Remind me next time. All right, Madam Host. Not violating the character setting. She must be lying to the system. When did she not violate the character setting? Tang Guo would not do anything to Lin Manman. After all, Lin Manman thought the same way in the storyline. She did not do anything to the original owner. She just would not let the side mission succeed. As for Yen Gung's feelings, she did not care at all. Yen Gung's feelings for her were his own business. In order to fit the character setting, Tang Guo frowned and looked at Lin Manman with an unfriendly expression. Then, she snorted and walked into the classroom. She slammed her bag on the table with a loud bang, scaring the students around her. It was no wonder. With such a strange temperament, who would like her at the drop of a hat? Outside, Lin Manman stuck her tongue out at Yen Gung. But it was a pity that Yen Gung could not appreciate her current behavior. He frowned and ignored her, as if saying that they were not close. This angered Lin Manman. If it were not for the main mission, she would not have bothered with this dog. Tang Guo was expressionless and took out her book. At this moment, she felt that someone was smoking something and realized that her bag was pressing down on her deskmate's paper. She turned her head and saw a male student with a bowl cut and a pair of framed glasses carefully taking out the paper. When he realized that she was looking at him, he said, "Classmate Tang Guo, my paper is calling for help." Tang Guo remembered that this guy was a nerd in class. He only knew how to read and rarely spoke. But what was surprising was that he was also the president of the student union. Wasn't he a nerd? Why was he so humorous? Peak. Chapter 30:18. Tang Guo only glanced at him before she stuffed her bag into the desk drawer with a gloomy face. Her movements were especially loud, as if she was afraid that others wouldn't hear her. The surrounding students saw it and their voices became softer. Everyone knew that Tang Guo had a strange temper and wasn't easy to get along with. If their class wasn't arranged according to grades, the boy with the black-rimmed glasses wouldn't be sitting with her. They didn't have any special thoughts about the boy with the black-rimmed glasses. Other than his good grades, he was also the president of the student union. He had a strange bowl cut and was dressed properly. The zipper of the school uniform was always pulled down to below the collar, and the clothes were tied according to the school's standards. It was standard. She looked like an ordinary person. He usually spoke very little. He would only speak at length when it was necessary, and it was the kind that was especially official. Even when he led the student union to check the school's uniforms, whether the students had brought their cell phones, and when it came to hygiene, he was meticulous and rigid. This kind of male student was seriously serious in the eyes of the girls in the class. He was simply not charming at all. Not to mention handsome boys like Yen Gung who had good looks, good grades, and knew how to play basketball, even those boys who had bad grades but were still handsome and good at talking. It was probably because the teachers in the school liked people like Lien Jian. After all, Lien Jian would complete the tasks assigned by the teachers very seriously. Previously, the original owner was also indifferent to Lien Jian. The two of them weren't very familiar with each other. Even in class, they rarely spoke. Lien Jian wouldn't take the initiative to say anything. The original owner's condition was very bad, so she basically wouldn't say anything either. Both of them were very smart people who worked hard on their studies. At most, they would discuss questions in class. That was the teacher's request. In fact, according to their level, no question in the first year of high school would be difficult for them. Although Tang Guo's movements were a little loud, if one observed carefully, when she took her bag away, she didn't drag it away and didn't make any wrinkles on Lien Jian's test papers. It was just that she accidentally pressed them just now. After she put away her school bag, she buried her head in her book and read without saying a word. Everyone around her was used to it. Lien Jian carefully moved the test paper in front of him and couldn't help but glance at Tang Guo, who was reading seriously. Then, he took out his pen and continued to do the test paper. The sudden silence between the two of them caused the atmosphere in the classroom to relax. As it was still early, they began to secretly communicate with each other. Yen Gung's seat wasn't far from Tang Guo. He seemed to have sensed that Tang Guo was angry, so he ignored Lin Manman, who was greeting her. He walked in with quick steps. His position was just across the aisle from Tangua's. Seeing that Tangua was reading, he wrote a small note and handed it to her. Tangua picked it up and looked at it. Suddenly, she felt that someone was peeping. She looked up and saw Lien Jian staring at her without blinking. His expression was very serious. Lien Jian glanced at the note in Tangua's hand and said seriously, "It's the morning reading time now. It's not suitable for passing notes. The student union will be here in a while. If they see it, they will deduct disciplinary points." Tangua looked at Lien Jian and didn't say anything. "I'm not the one doing the inspection today. Forget it. Don't do it again," Lien Jian said again. Peek. Chapter 30:19. Tangua glanced at the note and stuffed it into her desk drawer. It was Yen Geng who asked her if she wanted to go to the library to study. Their school had a very large library. Many students would choose to go to the library to read during their free time. In order not to ruin my image, of course I can't listen to him and not pass around the note. Tangua flipped open the blank page of her book, tore off the note, and wrote one word on it, "Go." Under Lien Jian's serious expression, she crumpled the note into a ball and threw it at Yen Geng. When Yen Geng got a response, he only smiled at Tangua. The reason he paid so much attention to Tangua was that he felt that this girl was different. Even though many people said that she had a bad temper and was difficult to get along with, sometimes he felt that she seemed a little lonely. Many times when he came back from playing basketball and passed by the library, he could see the girl sitting by the library window, constantly doing questions and reading books. She looked a little lonely. At that time, he really wanted to get close to her. Originally, he didn't like quiet places like the library. His grades weren't among the top 2 students, but other than those top students, no one could surpass him. He didn't usually read books. The fact that he could reach this level was enough to prove that he was very smart. After getting close to Tangua, unexpectedly, she wasn't that difficult to get along with. At least, after getting familiar with her, he didn't feel that her temper was that strange. Until now, Yen Geng still wanted to know what secrets this girl had. He also had a good impression of Tangua. Of course, it was far from liking her. On the other side, after Tangua threw the note to Yen Geng, Lien Jian kept staring at Tangua without moving his eyes away. Tangua glanced at him coldly. "What, bookworm? Are you going to deduct the discipline points of the class?" "I'm not the one checking the discipline today." Lien Jian avoided Tangua's question. His words were actually a little tactful. The underlying meaning was that he wasn't the one checking, so he could turn a blind eye. As for whether or not it suited his identity as the president of the student council, he didn't care. Lien Jian felt that he was a little strange. With a serious face, he looked away and continued to deal with the test papers on the table. He was actually thinking that it was fortunate that he wasn't the one checking the discipline today. He held the pen tightly. Why did he have such a strange idea? "At least you know what's good for you," Tangua said and continued reading. The system saw some clues. Did this mean that this bookworm was that guy? This strong desire to live should be it. But what the hell was a bowl cut and black-rimmed glasses? It was no wonder that, in the entire class, he looked ordinary and all the girls thought that he was rigid. Some people even joked that this was the real student cadre, the old student cadre. Not long after, a book was pushed over to Tangua. The notebook was filled with words. As a member of the study committee, you have to set an example. If you have anything to say it after class. Don't pass around notes during class. Everything you do in this class is related to the honor of the entire class. If because of you, the entire class is implicated and your discipline points are deducted, it will be your fault if you don't get into the excellent class. At that time, because of you, everyone will blame you in their hearts and it will easily lead to conflicts between the students. The peak. Chapter 30:20. After reading a paragraph, Tangua glanced at Lien Jian. He was doing the test papers with a straight face. He held back his laughter and continued reading. "Actually, it's for your own good that you're not allowed to pass notes in class. It's because you're the study commissary. If you take the lead and make a mistake, People will think that the study commissary is a student who doesn't abide by the rules. Even if you don't care, this is a school. It's a place for learning. Some rules still have to be strictly followed. At that time, many people will still attack you. Because after the class discipline points are deducted, the small blackboard below will write down which students have violated the rules and what they have done. Student Tangua, if you don't want to, next week, it will be written on the blackboard that a certain class will lose 2 points for discipline. The one who violated the discipline is student Tangua. She passed a note during class. You've always been the first in the test. You're also the first in this school. There's no one who doesn't know you. Tell me how many people will laugh at you at that time. After hearing these words, will you feel comfortable? If you feel uncomfortable, will it affect your mood? If your mood is affected, will it affect your studies? Therefore, after violating the rules, you'll be deducted points. The class won't be able to get the title of outstanding class, but it'll affect you the most. After Tangua finished reading this long persuasion book, she took out a pen and wrote a paragraph at the blank space at the bottom. Then she pushed the book to Lian Jian. Lian Jian stared at the paragraph at the bottom. His black-rimmed glasses almost fell off, because it said, "It's also class time now. You passing notes to me are no different from passing notes." What do you think, student Lian Jian? As the president of the student council, you took the lead in class to pass notes to your classmates. If other people found out, I don't know what you'll do as the president of the student council. At that time, you'll be deducted points. Next week, it will be written on the small blackboard. Because the one who violated the rules is the president of the student council, 1 point will be deducted. The president of the student council actually openly passed notes to his deskmate during class time to chat. System. Ha 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 ha. Good ball. Lian Jian looked at the paragraph and felt terrible. He was still doing the test papers seriously. At this moment, he really wanted to reply to Tangua's words, but if he did, it would be considered as passing around notebooks in class. Doing things outside of studying in class, especially whispering to each other, passing notes, and notebooks are all against the rules. Because their school wanted to cultivate a learning atmosphere, they were very strict in terms of discipline. After class, you can do whatever you want. But during class, you have to read and couldn't do anything else. If an inspection team came over and saw people whispering in each other's ears, their marks would be deducted. Not only that, but they would also be on the small blackboard next Monday. Lian Jian felt a little uncomfortable now. He especially wanted to reply to Tangua's words, but he couldn't send a small notebook. After enduring until the end of the morning class, he stopped Tangua, who was going to the bathroom, and quickly said, "I was wrong this time. I won't do it in the future. I hope that student Tangua will do the same." Tangua glanced at the large black-rimmed glasses and the bowl-cut head. She tried her best to hold back her laughter and impatiently nodded. Okay, although the host's temper wasn't good, she still abided by the rules. The host wasn't that hard to get along with, but she looked hard to get close to. But strangers wouldn't understand this. They would only get close to people who were easy to get along with. This was human nature. Lian Jian nodded. "I'll supervise you. You can supervise me." System. Laughing to death. Chapter 30-21. Yan Geng watched as Tangua went to the toilet, so he got up and followed her. In their school days, no matter how stressful their studies were, it was the time when their hearts were budding. These young boys and girls, even if they were going to the toilet, were very happy to be able to talk to each other along the way. "I saw Lian Jian writing something to you before?" Yan Geng asked. In fact, he did not take Lian Jian seriously. The main reason was that Lian Jian's image did not conform to the aesthetic standards of their era. Although he looked very stiff, Lian Jian actually didn't look too bad. It was just that he dressed up, which was not the kind of thing that girls liked. In particular, the things he was wearing and using looked very ordinary. He was not handsome, nor was he a rich second-generation heir. Other than having some results, he was also a meticulous student union president. Every time he saw girls in class wearing earrings, he would warn them to take them off and not wear them again. As for the earrings, they would be temporarily kept by the student union, and they could get them after school. Of course, this kind of male student who did not know how to please girls would not attract girls. On the contrary, many girls hated Lien Jian a little, because he was too serious, too rigid, and did not give others a chance at all. He did whatever they said and did not give them any face at all. When he saw male students smoking in the toilet, he would take out a small notebook seriously and write them down. If it was a student like him, he should have been beaten up quite a bit after leaving school. They suspected that Lien Jian had been beaten up, but he didn't say anything. After all, it was embarrassing to say such things. As a result, after about 3 weeks in high school, no male students in class dared to secretly smoke in the toilet. Regardless of whether the students were satisfied or not, the school teachers were quite satisfied. Yan Geng did not have the habit of smoking for the time being, so he did not argue with Lien Jian. He asked Tang Gua about this not for any other purpose. He just wanted to talk to her. After all, he did not treat Lien Jian as his opponent. Besides, Lien Jian was a bookworm who was not liked by girls. He only knew how to catch students who made mistakes all day long. Most of the time, he would ask Tang Gua questions about her studies. Tang Gua didn't try to hide anything. She stood side by side with Yan Geng and said, "He warned me not to pass around notes in class. It's against discipline." Yan Geng burst out laughing. That's not surprising. It's his style. Lien Jian has always been this serious. As he spoke, Yan Geng felt that something was wrong. They turned around and saw that Lien Jian was right behind them. This time, Lien Jian didn't say anything and just followed them all the way to the toilet. In the end, Tang Gua went to the female washroom, while Lien Jian and Yan Geng went to the male washroom. After a while, Tang Gua came out. Lien Jian and Yan Geng also came out at the same time. System. Ha 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 ha. This is good. Good. The three of them returned to the classroom together. When they returned to their seats, Yan Geng said, "Let's go to our usual seats for lunch." Lien Jian didn't know what was wrong with him. Although he was flipping through the book, his ears were listening to their conversation. He knew that Tang Gua had gone to the library at noon. He also knew that Yan Geng would go to the library with Tang Gua every day. He didn't think much of it before. It was a good thing for classmates to study together. But now he felt that something was wrong. As for what it was, he couldn't figure it out yet. Peak. Chapter 30-22. As expected, after lunch, Tang Gua and Yan Geng walked into the library. There were two more familiar faces. One was Lin Man, and the other was Lien Jian. Lien Jian sat by the window. As he would come here occasionally in the afternoon, he would sit here every time he saw Tang Gua. This time, he chose a seat closer to her. Lin Man also knew that Yan Geng would always choose a seat that was closer to her every time he sat. As a result, Tang Gua and Yan Geng's position just happened to be surrounded by these two people. Lin Man smiled and greeted Yan Geng. Yan Geng nodded slightly and did not say anything. Lien Jian did not say anything and did not look up. He knew that Tang Gua was here. Lin Man was used to Yan Geng's attitude and did not mind. Now she had to improve Yan Geng's impression of her. Only by getting closer to Yan Geng could she understand his preferences. Recently, her life had been very regular. She had also stopped eating fried food and puffed food that the original owner could not. She cleaned her face seriously every day. Hence, the pimples on her forehead and chin seemed to have dissipated a lot. She would also run in school every day for 2 reasons. First, she could train her body and lose 2 pounds. Second, and also the most important reason, Yan Geng would arrive at school very early every day and would play basketball at the school court early in the morning. She would run and Yan Geng would play basketball. They would meet easily. Tang Gua knew that Yan Geng and Lin Man would meet early in the morning. Not only would they meet, but because of one thing, Yan Geng would have a good impression of Lin Man. Because of this, Lin Man would complete the mission and obtain the reward, a weight loss pill. Lin Man would slowly lose weight and become more beautiful. Calculating the time, it was not long now. When she came to the library, the original owner was basically studying. Yan Geng would make a joke to cheer her up. This was also why the original owner was willing to get along with Yan Geng. He was very humorous and knew how to talk. It was very easy to get along with him. If nothing else happened, Yan Geng would be able to help her out of her trauma. After a day of studying, Tang Guo was sent home by the chauffeur, because it was more congested in the afternoon. Therefore, they would take a shortcut to go back. Tang Guo inadvertently glanced outside and suddenly saw a familiar figure. That conspicuous boy with a bowl cut and black-rimmed glasses. Who else could it be but Lian Jian? However, Lian Jian seemed to be surrounded by a few tall and burly boys. Judging from their school uniforms, they seemed to be from their school. In their school, regardless of whether they were male or female, they had to wear school uniforms. Regardless of whether they were male or female, they were not allowed to wear accessories or bring their phones to class. The management was very strict. Uncle Lee, stop by the side for a moment. I have some things to buy. Wait for me. Uncle Lee was a chauffeur specially arranged by the family Tang couple for Tang Guo. He was available 24 hours a day. It could be said that except for the parent-teacher conference every semester, the two of them rarely came to school to pay attention to Tang Guo. The original owner didn't know, but Tang Guo knew why. A couple who had not participated in it and were pregnant with the child for 10 months would not have deep feelings for the child. Furthermore, they were in a special situation. Perhaps they didn't have any feelings for her. After getting out of the car, Tang Guo seemed to be walking towards a small supermarket on the side of the street. In fact, when she walked into the crowd, she turned a corner and immediately rushed into the alley where Lian Jian was taken. However, just as she arrived at the entrance of the alley, she saw Lian Jian coming out of it. Classmate Tang Guo? Lian Jian happened to put on his black-rimmed glasses and looked at her seriously. Why are you here? Why would a girl like you come to such a remote alley? I suddenly needed to go to the toilet. System. Are you lying to a puppy? Host. Haven't you noticed that there is a toilet on the opposite side of the street? Can't you see such a big sign? Tang Guo observed Lian Jian and found that his originally meticulous school uniform was unzipped. His clothes were wrinkled and covered in dust. This guy, did he have a fight? Those tall boys didn't look weak, but they were all knocked down by him? The peak. Chapter 30-23. The toilet is opposite. Lian Jian still had that serious look on his face. If Tang Guo didn't notice the wrinkles and some dust on his body, she would have thought that he was an honest student cadre. Lian Jian seemed to have noticed that Tang Guo was looking at his zipper. He lowered his head and naturally patted the dust off his clothes. I accidentally fell, Lian Jian explained. Classmate Tang Guo, didn't you want to go to the toilet? Yes. After Tang Guo answered, she quickly turned around. Her originally taut expression suddenly revealed a bright smile. She walked quickly in the direction of the driver's car parked on the opposite side. Lian Jian looked in the direction she was going. It wasn't the opposite side at all. He was a little confused. Then he heard her voice. I suddenly don't want to go. Tang Guo had already returned to the car. Lian Jian looked at her position while zipping up his clothes and gently patting the dust off them. After Tang Guo's car drove away, he pushed his black-rimmed glasses and turned to the entrance of the alley. After turning a corner, he saw a group of tall male students lying on the ground. Seeing Lian Jian come back, these tall students were so scared that they trembled. Classmate Lian Jian, this is all a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. This group of tall students really regretted coming to find trouble with Lian Jian. They were caught smoking. So what if they had their cigarettes and lighter oil confiscated? So what if they had their marks deducted? They really shouldn't have thought that Lian Jian was the kind of person who could be bullied casually. Who would have thought that there was actually a huge dragon with fangs hidden under this silly face? It really hurt. Even their bones were hurting. Lian Jian had already tidied up his clothes. He picked up his school bag from the corner and carried it. He walked in front of these tall students again and stretched out his slender fingers. Hand it over. The tall students looked at each other. Finally, they gritted their teeth, took out their wallets, and handed them to Lian Jian. Lian Jian opened the wallet and took a look. He didn't take anything and threw it back to them. Not this. Not enough. Du Yingming, the leader of the tall students, had a bitter expression. Classmate Lian Jian, all my pocket money is in there. Lighter, cigarette, take them out. Lian Jian's hand didn't retract, but what he said made Du Yingming and the others relieved. Turned out that he wanted a lighter and a cigarette. They clicked their tongues in their hearts. It turned out that as the president of the student council, student Lian Jian would also touch these things behind their backs. To think that they thought Lian Jian was an honest student. Du Yingming and the others quickly took out all the cigarettes and lighters they had. They even took one out and wanted to light it for Lian Jian. Lian Jian refused. He pinched the cigarette between his fingers and used some force. The cigarette broke into 2 pieces and was thrown into the trash can next to him. He put the rest of the cigarettes and lighters into his bag. You can come and collect them when you're of age. These things will be kept by the student union for the time being. Lian Jian looked at them seriously and said, if you want to ask for it in advance, you can ask your parents to come and get it. Also, don't let me see you smoking in school from now on. Yes, we won't smoke in front of you anymore, Du Yingming said. He thought something would happen, but it turned out that it was just handing over the cigarettes and lighters. At worst, when they smoked in the future, they would get someone to watch them. When Lian Jian came, they would immediately put it out. Peak. Chapter 30-24. You can't do that either. If you smoke in school, especially in the men's washroom, the smell will affect the health of the female students. Lian Jian couldn't help but remember that these guys liked to smoke in the washroom on the same floor as their class. Tang Guo and the other female students would inevitably go there after class. Wouldn't the secondhand smoke from the men's washroom affect the health of the female students? Okay, don't worry, Lian Jian. We will definitely abide by the school rules. Du Yingming said flatteringly. If he really smoked and Lian Jian didn't find out, he could just say a few words and forget about it. But seeing how serious Lian Jian was, Du Yingming still felt a little guilty. This Lian Jian wasn't someone to be trifled with. He wasn't an ordinary good student. He looked so honest that they couldn't win against him. He finally understood why the boys who had been caught by Lian Jian didn't mention anything about Lian Jian. Perhaps they had already done it and suffered at Lian Jian's hands just like them. When Tang Guo returned home, to her surprise, Father and Mother Tang were both there. Seeing her, Mother Tang smiled and greeted her. Xiao Guo, you're back? Mother Tang looked very young. Many people thought that she was only in her early 30s. In reality, she was already in her early 40s. Father Tang was also very handsome. Both of them had taken good care of themselves. Facing their smiles, Tang Guo nodded. Ever since those things happened, the original owner and Father Tang had become very unfamiliar with each other. It wasn't that the original owner didn't want to act coquettishly. She vaguely felt that she wasn't that important, but she didn't want to lose her parents. She was afraid that they would leave and abandon her, so she could only act a little more obedient. The more obedient she acted in front of her parents, the more strange her temper was in front of others. Father Tang and Mother Tang didn't communicate with her at all. They didn't even focus on grooming her. It was just that they would provide her with whatever she needed. They weren't like the 2 illegitimate children who were already preparing to go abroad. For people of their class, it was very normal for them to prepare to go abroad as soon as they entered high school. Moreover, the high school they studied in was the international class that specialized in studying abroad. The 2 illegitimate children were in the international class. The original host didn't know much about these things because Father and Mother Tang wouldn't tell her. Her grades were excellent and she went to the best high school. Although the 2 illegitimate children's grades weren't too bad, they definitely couldn't surpass her. After greeting Father and Mother Tang, Tang Guo went back to her room to do her homework. When it was time to eat, the auntie had already come to call her to eat. She came to the dining room and saw that there was only 1 bowl and chopsticks on the table. The food was basically for 1 person. Aren't Mom and Dad eating? She turned around and looked at the couple sitting on the sofa, watching TV and chatting happily from time to time. Yes, even at home they could communicate so happily. Even the cook did not realize that there was anything wrong with their relationship. After the cooking auntie finished cooking, she cleaned up the place and left. He would only come over to help her make breakfast the next morning. The place where he lived was not far from here. Back then, when the couple hired an auntie, the premise was that the auntie could not live at home because they were not used to strangers. Now that he thought about it, they were afraid that someone would find out that they had no feelings for each other. Vertex. Chapter 30-25. Even if they covered it up perfectly, they were still afraid that something would be exposed. Sir and Madam said that they were out socializing, so they only asked me to be the hostess. After speaking, the auntie packed her things and left. After the auntie left and closed the door, the two couples who were chatting and laughing stopped talking. Instead, they each took out their phones and started a video call with someone. After their secret was exposed, they no longer tried to hide it in front of Tang Gua. The people they were video calling were the illegitimate children. Father Tang's illegitimate daughter was named Yu Ping Ping, and she took her mother's surname. Mother Tang's illegitimate son was named Chun Bofiai, and he took his father's surname. After all, this was the only way to avoid being exposed. They had yet to obtain more than 30% of the company's shares from the two old men. For a big company, having this much shares was more than enough. For such a huge benefit, the two of them were willing to let their true love suffer. Dad, I miss you again. When you're here, everything tastes good. But when you're not here, I can't eat anything. Although they were a little far apart, Tang Gua could still hear them clearly. When Father Tang heard his daughter's words, his heart melted. Dad will come over tomorrow and eat with you. What do you think? Of course, but I really want to see you every day when I come home. Every day when I wake up and walk out of my room, I want to see you. Father Tang subconsciously glanced over at Tang Gua. Seeing that she was burying her head in her food and didn't seem to notice, he smiled and said, "Next time during the holidays, I'll take you and your mother out to play. What do you think? Just us as a family?" Father Tang glanced over at Tang Gua again. Seeing that she didn't react, he smiled and said, "Yes, that's great. Let's do it next week. What do you think?" Okay. Mother Tang's situation was the same. Chun Bofiai told her a lot about school and whether or not she could attend a parent-teacher conference with his father after the midterms. Every time his father would go, his classmates all thought that he didn't have a mother. Mother Tang was in a bit of a dilemma. After all, they had promised Tang Gua that she and Father Tang must attend the parent-teacher conference every semester. "Mom, you've never come to school for a parent-teacher conference since I was young." Mrs. Tang subconsciously looked at Tang Gua, who was looking up at her mother. "Mom, you promised me that you'd go to the parent-teacher conference with Dad." Tang Gua's voice wasn't low, which infuriated Chun Bofiai. Of course, he did not get angry at Tang Gua. Instead, he said, "I know that Mom is afraid that our relationship will be exposed and it will have a negative impact. Speaking of which, I'm not that important in Mom's heart, right? Since that's the case, I won't force you. I'm being too willful." When Mrs. Tang heard this, her heart clenched in pain. Although Tang Gua was related to her by blood, she really did not have any feelings for this daughter. After all, she did not give birth to her after 10 months of pregnancy. As for Chun Bofiai, when she was pregnant with Chun Bofiai, she was tortured terribly. She was afraid of being found out, so she didn't dare to return to the country for more than a year. She was also a little unaccustomed to the environment overseas, so she lost a lot of weight and her hair fell out in clumps. Just as she was about to agree, Father Tang said, "It really isn't appropriate for us to attend their parent-teacher conference." Peak. Chapter 30-26. Don't forget that the class they're studying in isn't a normal class. They're all acquaintances in the industry. If you suddenly go over, won't you be giving your head to them? If the two elders find out, how are you going to clean up the mess? When Mother Tang heard this, she quickly nodded and explained to Chun Bofiai in a gentle tone. She even agreed to many conditions before Chun Bofiai finally gave up. When Tang Gua heard the conditions that Mother Tang agreed to, she thought it was hilarious. The original owner of the body had lived in such an environment for so long before she went crazy. She was already more powerful than many people. If it were her, she wouldn't be able to endure it even once. So she slammed the bowl on the table. Since she didn't have any feelings for them and she was the eldest daughter of the family, her parents couldn't blame her for not giving them face when they video chatted with their illegitimate child in front of her. Father Tang and Mother Tang didn't have many shares in the two companies. They only had about 5 to 6%. Most likely, the elders knew their personalities and didn't dare to give them too much. However, the company was huge. 5 to 6% was already impressive. It allowed them to trample on many people's heads. But the human heart was insatiable. They already had so much, but they still wanted more. Especially if it was something that was within their reach. Xiaogua, what do you mean by this? When Tangwa slammed the bowl and chopsticks on the table, she turned and went upstairs without saying a word. Father Tang was unhappy and called out to her. Why are you getting angry alone? Can't you talk nicely? You don't know how to be polite in front of father and mother. Not only did the two of them dislike Tangwa, they even thought she was an eyesore. Yes, that was what they were thinking. The reason why they were so nice to Tangwa in the beginning was because after Tangwa was born, the two elders each gave 3% of shares in the company under Tangwa's name. It was reasonable for them to treat her better. Tangwa didn't want to waste her time with this couple. She simply said, anyway, you both have your own true love and children. It doesn't matter if I'm polite or not. You're only allowed to joke around with your illegitimate child. But I'm not allowed to throw a little tantrum? What are you talking about? Father Tang and Mother Tang immediately stood up. It was Mother Tang again. What are you talking about? What illegitimate child? You're so ugly. We've taught you for nothing. You didn't teach me for nothing. Let's not talk about that. I only know that you've nurtured your two illegitimate children with top-notch skills in every aspect. Do you think that you're a qualified parent just because you hired a driver, an auntie, and held a parent-teacher conference at the end of the semester? Tang was sneered at them. This is a joke. Every time we have a party, you actually want me to greet my two illegitimate children, saying that they are my younger brother and sister, so as the elder sister, I should greet them. Aren't you disgusting? Father's Tangs? Tangwa. S's Tangwas. Mothered? Father, to be ass with hers to cause to. Don't be fierce in front of me. If you're really in the right, then spread the news and let everyone judge who's right and wrong. Let me tell you, I've had enough. Don't let me see you and your illegitimate children on video. Every time I see it, I'm going to throw a tantrum. Peak. Chapter 30:27. Don't tell me to take care of them when you go to a gathering. Get lost. I hate illegitimate children the most. Don't say that I'm rebellious. Don't say that you've done your duty. If you dare to get a divorce and go find your true love, your children, then I'll admit defeat. You do whatever you want. You've never considered my feelings. I'm just a tool that you guys made, a shield. You don't have the right to lecture me and teach me manners. Don't ask me to tolerate your illegitimate children and true love anymore. Since it's true love, why aren't you together? Haven't you been together for a long time? The life I'm living now is worse than not having parents. Tangwa's words poured a bucket of cold water on the two of them. It wasn't that she had triggered something. It was just that this matter couldn't be made public now. Once it was made public, the two old men would never give them the shares. They understood the old men's temperament. Before their mothers died, they listened to the old men's words and wrote a will to distribute the shares to the two old men. How could they not know that the old men still didn't believe them? Father Tang, who had wanted to hit Tangwa, also calmed down. The two of them looked at each other. Mother Tang took a deep breath and said, Xiaogua, it's our fault today. We just haven't seen your brother or sister in a long time. Get lost. I don't have a brother or sister. Father Tang wanted to hit the door again, but Mother Tang held him back. Yes, Mother really wanted Beaufait. I couldn't control myself and didn't care about your feelings. I'm really sorry. That has nothing to do with me. No matter who you miss, I shouldn't be the one to bear all this. Yes, it's all our fault. This won't happen again. Tangwa knew that they would compromise. After all, if she made a fuss and alerted the two old men, their plan would be completely useless. Although the two old men led a good life, They had lost too much when they were young. Now that they were old, they probably didn't have many years left. As long as they waited for a few more years, they would be able to make it. Tanggua has already made a plan. From time to time, she will visit the two old men and give them something to nourish their bodies. Even if they don't live up to 200 years old, they can still easily live up to 130 years old. Let's see if they dare to live longer. Xiaogua, your mother and I were in the wrong today. In the future, we won't do these things in front of you that you don't like. Don't tell me to dote on your illegitimate children during the gathering. Father Tang really wanted to hit someone. If it wasn't for this evil creature, would his precious Ping Ping be an illegitimate child? But he endured it. Okay, Dad promises you. I'm reading. You guys don't have to pay attention to me. I'm very angry right now. Tanggua smiled as she turned on her computer and put on her earphones. She video called Elder Lin and Elder Tang and said to the people outside, "Don't disturb me. Xiaogua, you must not make a big deal out of our family matters. Your grandpa and grandpa are not in good health. If you make a big deal out of it, Mommy is afraid that they will be sad and angry." Got it? Hearing Tanggua's compromise, the two of them finally heaved a sigh of relief and went downstairs together. Their expressions were not good. Once they got the shares, they would let their evil daughter fend for herself. It was really infuriating. Elder Lin asked, "What did you do?" Tanggua said softly, "I fought for the right to take the initiative and told them not to use those two illegitimate children in front of me in the future." Good. Previously, Elder Lin and I were still afraid that you would be taken advantage of. Seems like you have really thought it through. Come, it's time for class. Elder Tang said with a smile. Children were not important. Now, 100 years ago, it was already the luckiest thing that his granddaughter could stand up again. Yes, every night, Tanggua would be taught all kinds of knowledge by the two old men, especially when it came to company management. Although she knew a lot, she still learned a lot from the two old men. On this day, Tanggua arrived at school early. Coincidentally, she met Lin Manman supporting Yen Gung as they walked to the classroom. She walked in front of Yen Gung and coldly glanced at Lin Manman before asking Yen Gung, "How did you get hurt?" "When I was playing basketball, I jumped up and accidentally sprained my ankle when I fell." Yen Gung glanced at Lin Manman. "I was alone at that time. It was too early. Luckily, Lin Manman helped me." Because of this, Lin Manman's first main mission had been completed. Just when Tanggua appeared, Lin Manman received a side mission. Participate in the speech competition and win Tanggua. Reward, 1 beauty pill. Tanggua heard it and so did the system. They did not know what was going on. Even a high-level system like 111 could easily hear the conversation. Little Tongzi thought that it was because he was more high-level. "Let me help you." Tanggua walked according to her character and wanted to help Yen Gung up. Yen Gung did not refuse. Lin Manman smiled and nodded. "Okay, since student Tanggua is here, my mission is completed. I'll leave student Yen Gung to you." These words made Yen Gung have a better impression of Lin Manman. Actually, student Lin Manman was not that annoying. She was a very warm-hearted student. He must have misunderstood something previously. This was student Lin Manman's true side. Just when Tanggua was about to help Yen Gung up, a pair of hands suddenly appeared and gently pushed her away. "Student Yen Gung, are you hurt?" The person who came was Lien Jian. He helped Yen Gung up and said seriously, "Let's go." Student Lien Jian is the backbone of our school's basketball team. I'll arrange for 2 members of the student council to take care of you. Coincidentally, there are 2 in our class. I hope you'll recover soon and be able to win glory for the school's basketball team. There are only 2 months left before the next interschool league. You must rest well during this time. Peak. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.